Before we go any further, let me ask you something that might sting a little. Have you ever wondered what finally happens to a person who spends years being the good one? Because what I'm about to tell you isn't theory, it's something I watched unfold right in front of me, something that permanently changed the way I look at people. I once saw my closest friend destroy himself trying to be the good guy. He poured out everything, his time, his patience, his loyalty, into people who couldn't even remember his birthday, let alone his sacrifices. He forgave everyone, carried burdens that weren't his, and gave pieces of himself to people who didn't deserve a single drop of his kindness. 3 years passed, and when I finally saw him again, he wasn't the same man. The softness was gone. The hesitation was gone. The apologetic smile was gone. He had become ruthless, not cruel but carved into someone unshakable. And he told me something that tattooed itself into my soul. The world didn't change. I did. I just stopped being easy to break. That line hit me harder than anything I'd ever heard, because he wasn't just describing his journey. He was exposing mine, and yours, and every person who has ever been shattered by their own goodness. So here's my question to you. When will you stop being easy to break? Right now, whether you see it or not, there are two versions of you fighting for control. The first version is the one that over-explains, over-apologizes, over-gives. The version that tolerates, endures, hopes, and keeps believing people will magically become better. You contort yourself just to be liked. You stretch yourself thin for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you. And the more you offer, the less they value you. Then there's the second version. The one that rarely speaks but always understands. The version that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't argue, just disappears without noise or apology. You've lived as the first version for far too long. And whether you realize it or not, it's been killing parts of you that should have been sharp, strategic, and untouchable. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But he wasn't glorifying cruelty, he was warning you about imbalance. He was telling you that love without boundaries becomes a chain. Kindness without standards becomes a weakness. Today, I'm going to help you awaken the second version of yourself, the ruthless version, the version Machiavelli wrote about, the version people sense but cannot manipulate. There are 8 shifts, 8 internal upgrades, that divide the weak from the unbreakable. Each one will demand a piece of your old identity. Each one will feel like you're burning a previous version of yourself alive. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll walk away unrecognizable. You'll stop needing peace from others and start generating it from within. You'll understand the rare power of becoming emotionally untouchable. Because in this world, softness without strategy gets you crushed. Only those who choose ruthlessness at the right moments survive with their soul intact. Before we begin, drop this in the comments. I will not break again. Number 1. Stop giving yourself to the ungrateful. The path toward becoming unbreakable begins with one brutal truth. Your heart was never the problem. The problem was where you kept placing it. You've been leaking energy into people who feast on your light but never shine anything back. You kept forgiving, explaining, helping, hoping that someday they'd finally recognize your worth. They never did. And here's the psychological reason why. What comes too easily is subconsciously dismissed. Humans instinctively downgrade anything they don't struggle to earn. When you give too freely, people assume you're trying to buy affection. And when someone senses that you need to be liked, they own you. Weakness isn't born from lack of strength. It's born from emotional dependence disguised as kindness. Machiavelli warned us. Men are quicker to offend one who is loved than one who is feared. People exploit your goodness because they don't fear losing it. They know you'll stay. They know you'll forgive. They know you'll make excuses for them. He's stressed. She didn't mean it. They're just going through something. But that's not compassion. That's self-betrayal. People remember pain, not kindness. They respect boundaries, not explanations. The more predictable your mercy, the more invisible you become. Every time you tolerated disrespect, you trained them to treat you like an option. Every time you defended your worth with words, you proved that you doubted it. This is the hidden reason the good get broken first. You thought kindness made you safe. But in the hands of the ungrateful, kindness becomes a weapon used against you. These people aren't predators of your body, they prey on your guilt. They twist your empathy into chains. They make you feel like protecting yourself is a crime. Stop believing you owe loyalty to anyone simply because you once cared. Your care is a privilege, not a birthright. Give it only to those who respect it. Everyone else should experience the sharp silence of your absence. Detachment is your armor. Indifference is your quiet revenge. Machiavelli understood this when he said, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous." His message was simple. Do not hand power to the ungrateful. They will only use it to weaken you. Goodness without boundaries becomes a slow suicide. Ruthlessness is not cruelty, it's correction. It's the moment you stop gifting access to people who have proven they don't deserve it. When you stop answering every call, stop forgiving every lie, stop explaining your silence. The ungrateful panic. They no longer know how to control you. They can't feed on your reactions anymore. That's when the power shifts. You go from being someone who hopes for respect to someone who chooses who even gets close to you. The world belongs to those who conserve their energy like a weapon, not those who scatter it like confetti. Every drop of strength you waste on the wrong people is stolen from the future you're meant to build. Withdraw it. Protect it. Rebuild yourself in the shadows. Let them wonder what happened to your warmth. Tell them it died the moment you finally saw the truth. Some people deserve your distance far more than they ever deserved your devotion. Drop this in the comments. My kindness has limits. Number 2. Turn pain into power. Pain is the most honest teacher you'll ever meet. It doesn't flatter your ego, it doesn't negotiate, and it doesn't care how tired you are. It cuts straight through your illusions and exposes who you really are beneath all the excuses. The difference between people who stay broken and those who become powerful isn't how much pain they felt, it's how they used it. Weak minds drown because they keep searching for fairness. They think the world owes them healing, closure, or justice. But ruthless minds know the truth. Pain is currency. Either you invest it into building strength or you waste it by complaining. Those who rise from the ashes aren't lucky. They're strategic. They look at betrayal, heartbreak, and humiliation and ask not, "Why me?" but, "What is this teaching me about control?" Machiavelli said it best. Never waste the opportunity offered by a good crisis. Every moment of suffering is a chance to evolve into someone that life can't break anymore. Pain isn't punishment, it's information. Pain always tells the truth. It points directly at the exact spot where your weakness has been living in silence. Every betrayal marks the place where you handed out trust like it was cheap. Every rejection exposes the shaky foundation where you built your self-worth. Every loss pulls back the curtain on the lie of permanence you clung to. But the moment you begin seeing pain through that lens, it stops being something that bleeds you and becomes something that builds you. It transforms from a wound into a weapon. Something you sharpen your mind with instead of something that shatters it. The deeper psychology of transformation has always been rooted in this. Turning suffering into strategy. Most people cry just to take the pressure off their emotions. But the ones who rise? They use reflection to forge resilience. They don't chase closure, they manufacture power. They don't waste hate on enemies, they study them. They don't run from their mistakes, they analyze them until the lesson is burned into their instincts. They convert heartbreak into emotional discipline. They turn disappointment into laser-focused intention. That is what Machiavellian toughness really is, using the world's cruelty as fuel instead of letting it chain you down. Pain becomes the furnace where dominance is smelted. When life breaks you open, it's not destroying you, it's showing you who you are without the mask, without the performance, without the softness you've been clinging to. Stop sprinting away from your suffering. Sit with it. Feel every ounce of the burn. Because once you've survived the storms inside your own chest, no one else can control you with fear again. When you stop fearing pain, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is pure power. Manipulation loses its grip. Guilt slides off you. Rejection doesn't faze you because you've already survived the kind of hurt people don't come back from unchanged. Machiavelli believed a man gains far more wisdom from misfortune than from comfort, and he was right. Pain awakens awareness. It forces evolution. It shatters illusions you should have outgrown years ago. You begin seeing people for who they actually are, not who your heart hoped they would become. You start choosing logic over emotion, strategy over impulse. And the more you endure, the less reactive you become. You move like someone who has already walked through fire and lived to tell the story. That energy commands respect on a level softness never will. People feel it the moment you enter a room. The aura of a person who turned every scar into a shield, every wound into wisdom. Your silence gets heavier. Your eyes get steadier. Your presence becomes something people pay attention to, even when you say nothing. That's the moment you know you've crossed the invisible line, from being shaped by pain, to shaping the world through it. So the next time life hurts you, don't curse it. Don't run from it. Study it like a map. Ask yourself, what advantage is hidden inside this feeling? Because buried inside every moment of agony is a seed of power, if you're ruthless enough to use it. Drop this in the comments. My pain builds power. Number 3. Kill the need to be understood. The need to be understood is one of the most seductive traps that powerful minds fall into. You keep explaining yourself, hoping people will recognize your intentions, your heart, your truth. But here's the reality most people never want to accept. Most people don't want to understand you. They want to categorize you. They're not listening to grasp your meaning, they're listening to find a crack they can pry open. Every explanation you offer becomes ammunition. In dark psychology, the more someone understands your motives, the easier it becomes to manipulate you. This is why the ruthless stay quiet. They let others assume, project, theorize, and twist, because confusion keeps them untouchable. Machiavelli said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." And command dies the moment you over-explain. Explaining is a defensive act. It reveals you're still craving validation. Power never justifies itself. It simply exists. The most intimidating people aren't the loud ones. They're the ones who move silently without announcing why they feel, act, or withdraw. Their silence creates tension. That tension becomes respect. The weak beg to be seen. The strong choose to be misunderstood. Because once you stop defending yourself, you evolve into someone unreadable. And unreadable equals uncontrollable. People can't manipulate what they can't predict. Throughout history, rulers, strategists, and leaders mastered the weapon of ambiguity. They spoke less than they knew. They acted more than they explained. You must learn to do the same. Every time you rush to explain your intentions, you hand people the blueprint of your emotions. You teach them how to disarm you. Transparency may feel honest, but psychologically, it invites dissection. And dissection kills the mystique of power. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The wise stop justifying themselves early. The fool keeps talking until his words expose him. You don't owe anyone clarity about your choices. Not your distance. Not your silence. Not your standards. Not your evolution. Let them misunderstand. Let them call you cold, arrogant, detached, different. Every false label is another layer of armor. The moment you stop correcting people's perceptions, you regain control of the narrative. Control lives in restraint. Silence is not weakness, it's controlled dominance. It makes people uneasy because they can't predict your next move. And uncertainty breeds caution. Caution becomes respect. Think of the most powerful person you've ever met. They weren't the loudest in the room, they were the quiet force everyone felt. Their presence demanded attention not because they fought for it, but because they didn't need to. Every word they didn't say carried more weight than the 1,000 explanations others wasted breath on. You must become that presence. A mystery no one can fully decode. A storm that never announces itself. When someone provokes you, let your silence choke their ego. When someone misjudges you, let them sit in the discomfort of their own assumption. Your truth is your weapon. Don't waste it trying to win the approval of the unworthy. Those who demand explanations from you don't deserve them. And those who truly value you will never require one. Power has never been about persuading others to agree with you. Real power is built the moment you become so grounded, so internally certain, that other people's confusion stops having any impact at all. When you finally release the obsession with being understood, you begin, often for the first time, to understand yourself. Now drop this in the comments. My silence speaks power. Number 4, detach. Don't beg. Begging, for love, for clarity, for attention, is the fastest way the powerful make themselves servants. The more you chase what's walking away, the smaller you appear to those who were never planning to value you in the first place. Detachment is not coldness. It's mastery. It's the discipline of stepping away from anything that threatens your dignity, even if part of you desperately wanted it to stay. Many people confuse attachment with loyalty, but they're opposites. Loyalty is strength, rooted in choice. Attachment is dependence, rooted in fear. Society has conditioned you to believe that fighting for someone proves your devotion. But in the darker mechanics of human behavior, the one who chases always loses leverage. Every time you beg for attention, validation, or emotional crumbs, you broadcast a signal. I can be controlled. And exploitation enters through that signal. Machiavelli wrote, "He who is not master of himself cannot be master of others. Because when your emotions govern you, anyone can." The ruthless detach not because they are empty inside, but because they refuse to be owned by their own longing. When someone pulls away, they don't plead, they observe. When someone disrespects them, they don't negotiate, they disappear. Their silence becomes the blade. Their absence becomes the message. In a world fueled by emotional manipulation, detachment is rebellion. It terrifies manipulators because the one thing they rely on, your reaction, dies. Once you stop reacting, you become unreadable. Unreadable becomes untouchable. Untouchable becomes feared. The most powerful weapon is not anger, it's indifference. Indifference burns colder than hate and outlasts love. And when people can no longer predict how you respond, they lose the grip they once tightened around your mind. That's the moment the energy shifts. You stop being the one who waits, and become the one who decides. The same people who ignored you suddenly feel the weight of your silence. Silence from someone who used to over-explain is louder than a shout. Detachment grants you an unfamiliar authority. The authority to exit chaos with your inner peace untouched. Machiavelli insisted that emotional control is the foundation of every ruler's success, because those who cannot detach will always belong to those who can. He said people are driven by two forces, love or fear. When you master your attachment, you command both. The ruthless know not everyone deserves access. Not every emotion deserves expression. Not every relationship deserves resurrection. Withdraw your energy quietly. Close doors without announcing it. Let your distance feel like consequence. This is psychological warfare at its most precise. The more you detach, the more power you reclaim. You begin to notice that peace is found not in connection, but in composure. Your greatest strength becomes the ability to care deeply and still walk away the second your dignity is threatened. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you finally care correctly about yourself first. Because when you stop begging, you stop bleeding. And when you stop bleeding, no one can feed on you again. Drop this affirmation. I choose peace over people. Number 5. Boundaries are your armor. Boundaries are the invisible fortresses that separate power from chaos. Without them, your life becomes an open landscape where anyone can wander in, take whatever they want, and leave you hollow. You were conditioned to believe no is selfish. That limits make you cold. But the truth is simple. A lack of boundaries is self-destruction disguised as kindness. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you forgive without consequence, every time you allow someone to cross lines just to keep temporary peace, you carve away pieces of yourself. Weak people confuse tolerance with strength. The ruthless see the truth. A heart without armor becomes a target. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince who is not wise himself cannot be well advised." Meaning, if you don't protect yourself, no one else will. The world does not honor your openness. It uses it. The same people who smile at your generosity today may weaponize your forgiveness tomorrow. Human desire, when unchecked, always pushes against unguarded borders. People test limits you refuse to enforce. Boundaries aren't walls meant to exile the world. They are gates, protecting the sacred parts of you from those who do not deserve access. They aren't cruelty. They're clarity. And clarity terrifies manipulators because it eliminates their leverage. In the deeper psychology of power, boundaries are not suggestions. They are tools of control. The one who enforces them sets the terms of every interaction. When you say no calmly and without guilt, you communicate dominance. When you cut off access after betrayal, you declare your worth as untouchable. The powerful never argue about respect. They enforce it. Forgiveness without consequence becomes submission. Mercy without structure becomes chaos. The moment you stop rewarding disrespect with your presence, you create a silence that demands reverence. The fearful will call it arrogance. The weak will call it ego. The wise will recognize it as self-command. Machiavelli said, "He who allows himself to be deceived is deserving of deception." You train people how to treat you by what you allow. The moment you begin guarding your space like a guarded fortress rather than an open marketplace, something remarkable happens. The parasites disappear, the background noise dissolves, and your sense of inner calm finally returns. And in that stillness, You see with painful clarity who truly values you. The ones who respect your boundaries instead of resenting them. The ones who adjust to your standards instead of demanding you lower them. Boundaries don't just protect you, they refine your world. They sift the sincere from the selfish, the loyal from the opportunistic, the genuine from the manipulators hiding behind convenience. Your presence begins to feel earned rather than casually available. Because a life without boundaries is a life stripped of dignity. But a life built upon them, that's a life commanded with quiet, unshakable authority. Those who understand power know this. Kindness without defense is an invitation for destruction. That's why the ruthless construct their walls not from fear, but from wisdom. Because the goal was never to be liked. The goal has always been to be respected. Every boundary you set is a declaration to the world. This is where my peace begins. And anyone who truly cherishes you will never ask you to drop your armor. Instead, they'll approach it with respect. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My boundaries protect me. Number 6. Master the art of silence. Silence is the sharpest blade in the arsenal of the powerful, the tool they reach for when words become worthless. Most people fear silence because it exposes their lack of control. They speak just to fill the air, to prove relevance, to grasp for validation through noise. But every unnecessary word you release becomes potential ammunition for those who seek to manipulate you. The wise understand that in a world addicted to talking, silence becomes a form of dominance. Machiavelli once wrote that revealing too much of your thoughts makes you predictable, and predictability makes you easy to control. Once people can read your emotions like an open book, they can predict your reactions, and the one who predicts you controls you. Silence robs them of that power. It cloaks you in mystery, forcing others to second-guess themselves. The quiet presence in the room is always the one others watch, analyze, and fear. In dark psychology, silence isn't emptiness. It's strategy. Speaking less shifts the balance of control without ever lifting a verbal weapon. When you choose silence, you allow others to reveal themselves, their insecurities, their intentions, their hidden motives. Meanwhile, the powerful sit back and collect information. The ruthless don't rush to explain. They observe. They don't scramble to prove their point. They wait for the moment that benefits them most. Every pause you allow in a conversation quietly raises your authority. Every time you let others fill the silence, they unknowingly surrender something. Their nerves, their thoughts, or their plans. Machiavelli believed that perception is the heartbeat of power. The less people know about what moves you, the more they fear your next move. Silence creates tension. It makes them project their fears onto you. They start imagining what you might do, and that imagination becomes its own chains. This is why silence isn't absence, it's presence intensified. You don't need to raise your voice to own a room. Your restraint speaks louder than chaos ever could. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one with real power, they're simply desperate for it. True power moves quietly. History's most feared rulers understood this. Reveal little and people will imagine much. And when their imagination fills the void, they obey out of their own uncertainty. Learn to weaponize your calm. When someone insults you, let silence wrap around them until they choke on their own guilt. When someone tries to provoke you, refuse to react and watch their frustration expose them. Your silence will echo louder than any argument. People anticipate noise, they fear stillness. And within that stillness you seize control. Machiavelli said the wise man acts rather than defends himself with endless words. The fool uses noise as protection, but the wise guard themselves with quiet. The moment you stop over-explaining yourself, you shift from emotional to strategic. You stop defending your position and start commanding the entire game. Power isn't something that begs to be understood, it's something that demands to be felt. Silence makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability earns respect. The one who controls their tongue controls their future. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence controls chaos. Number 7. Never show full loyalty. Loyalty is a powerful weapon, but only when it's selective. Offer it blindly and it becomes your prison. Machiavelli warned long ago that people are ungrateful, fickle, and easily swayed. Expecting pure loyalty in a world driven by self-interest is nothing more than an invitation for betrayal. Power belongs to those who know when to align, and just as importantly, when to withdraw. The world isn't moved by goodness, it's moved by strategy. When you give unquestioned loyalty to anyone, a friend, a leader, a lover, you hand them the key to your independence. Over time, your devotion stops being seen as virtue. It becomes seen as weakness. Complete loyalty makes you predictable, and in the arena of power, predictability is suicide. Dark psychology teaches that loyalty should never be emotional, it should be calculated. True Machiavellian loyalty is conditional. It must serve your goals, protect your peace, and elevate your position. The moment it stops fulfilling those things, it must be questioned. Yet most people cling to loyalty out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of judgment, fear of being labeled disloyal. But those same people are the ones who are discarded first when they are no longer convenient. The powerful don't attach themselves to individuals, they attach themselves to opportunities. They understand that alliances shift like the ocean tides. They don't fight the tide, they ride it. Your loyalty should be a mask, not your identity. Wear it when it benefits you. Remove it the moment it becomes a liability. This isn't cruelty, it's survival. Machiavelli wrote that no man should ever depend entirely on one person or one thing. Dependence strangles your autonomy, and autonomy is the foundation of dominance. Never let anyone see where your true allegiance lies. Let people believe you stand with them, but remain aligned with yourself above all. Because the illusion of loyalty is often more powerful than loyalty itself. It keeps others comfortable while keeping you untouchable. In politics, in business, in personal life, this is how kingdoms rise. Leaders fall because they trust too deeply. Followers are eliminated because they serve too faithfully. Friends become enemies because they expect equality in a world built on hierarchy. When you are too loyal, people begin to take your presence for granted. They question your boundaries, exploit your devotion, and worst of all, they stop fearing the day you walk away. And without that fear, respect dies. The moment people know you can leave without hesitation, your loyalty becomes a privilege, not a given. That is how you establish power. You must learn to offer loyalty the same way a warrior wields a blade, precisely, intentionally, and only when it cuts forward in your favor. Loyalty should never be handed out like a sentimental gift. Gifts fade from memory. But a weapon. A weapon is respected because it can wound if misused. This mindset alone makes you unreadable, and unpredictability is the most lethal psychological advantage a person can possess. No one can manipulate the individual they cannot categorize. And that is the heart of Machiavellian power, remaining a mystery standing in plain sight, appearing loyal on the surface while remaining sovereign in your soul. The modern world will label this mindset cold, emotionless, even cruel. But consider who uses those words. The powerless, the same people who praise those who betrayed them. Remember this truth. Loyalty without intelligence is an act of self-destruction. You owe nothing to anyone who would not bleed for your survival. Your allegiance must always be married to your purpose, not to the temporary characters who wander in and out of your path. Number 8. Become untouchable. Becoming untouchable is the final evolution of personal power, the point at which insults, betrayal, manipulation, and chaos bounce off you like dull arrows hitting steel. This level of strength isn't about ego, and it isn't about becoming heartless. It is about mastering the one kingdom you truly own, yourself. The world will throw storms at you. People will push your limits. Situations will fail to match what you desire. The weak shatter. The anxious react. The unprepared collapse. But the untouchable, they glide through the battlefield like a phantom, unshaken, unclaimed, and completely in command of themselves. Machiavelli wrote, "He who is wise will be master of himself. For he who is mastered by others is never free." And that is the core. True freedom begins only when inner mastery begins. To become untouchable, you must stop chasing love, validation, and applause. These are chains disguised as comforts. They keep you tied to the shifting moods of others. The world does not reward kindness, nor consistency, nor purity of intention. It respects clarity, strength, and uncompromising self-possession. Once you stop depending on others to feed your ego, your energy begins to return to you. And that energy becomes your armor. It shields you from manipulation, distraction, and emotional ambush. The untouchable are built deliberately. They invest in discipline instead of approval, in strategy instead of hope. They cultivate presence, unwavering patience, and a quiet confidence that doesn't need witnesses. Their influence isn't earned through noise, it's earned through consistency and an unspoken authority that people feel but can't explain. Dark psychology reveals a simple truth. People fear what they cannot read. And once you detach from emotional dependency, from the need to explain yourself, defend yourself, or be understood, you transform into an enigma no one can control. Your reactions become strategic. Your silence becomes calculated. Anger is measured. Desire is disciplined. Fear becomes irrelevant. You turn into the axis around which chaos spins, steady, centered, immovable. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. But fear in this context is not terror, it is the weight of your presence. It is the understanding that crossing you has a price. Untouchability is the ability to make people hesitate before trying to test you. It is the silent announcement that you are no longer accessible for exploitation. No insult, betrayal, or manipulation can shake you because you are complete within yourself. You are no longer a reflection of someone else's opinion. You become the sum of your discipline, your strategy, and your will. To reach this state, you must abandon the last fragments of emotional dependence. The need to justify, the urge to chase, the instinct to plead or prove. You must release resentment, attachment, and the hunger to be chosen. The untouchable do not flinch because they understand the fragility of external validation. Their anchor is internal, and internal anchors cannot be uprooted. When you arrive here, power becomes effortless. People sense it in your presence before you even speak. They may respect it or fear it, but they cannot ignore it. You graduate from being a participant in manipulation to becoming the standard by which others measure their own confidence. You walk untouchable because you have mastered the only battlefield that matters, yourself. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Nothing can break me. The world will try to. It will test your patience, twist your trust, punish your kindness, and teach you again and again that fairness is a myth. People are unpredictable. Circumstances shift without warning. And the only constant you can rely on is the strength you build. For far too long, you've allowed others to shape your peace. You've poured energy into the unworthy, begged to be understood, and let attachment chain you to disappointment. That era ends today. You now carry the blueprint to become someone no one can manipulate or drain ever again. You've learned to stop giving to the ungrateful. You've turned suffering into steel. You've silenced the need for acceptance. You've detached from the parasites. You've strengthened your boundaries, mastered your silence, sharpened your loyalty, and risen into someone untouchable. None of this is luck. None of it comes easily. But every step you take along this path strips away another hand the world once had wrapped around your spirit. Machiavelli taught that the wise act immediately while the fool delays. Today you choose wisdom. You choose control. You choose ruthlessness, not in cruelty but in discipline, clarity, and power. This is the version of you the world cannot bend, cannot guilt, cannot manipulate, cannot break. The path ahead won't be smooth. It's not meant to be. There will be obstacles, tests, betrayals. But now every challenge becomes an examination you pass. Every betrayal becomes a blade you forge into strategy. Every difficulty becomes a chance to prove your evolution. The untouchable are forged in fire, shaped by strategy, and shielded by an unshakable sense of self. Stand inside that truth. Move with intention. Operate with presence instead of excuses. Become the person who rises without permission, who commands without noise, who shifts the room simply by walking into it. The world will notice the change. But only after you've already become untouchable. If this message strengthens something inside you, hit like, share it with someone who needs this truth, and subscribe for more strategies to elevate your power and sharpen your mind. You are no longer the version that bends. You are the version that leads. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I am untouchable now.